I think we need to do a famous grave.
Sounds good.
Maybe some other stuff.
Okay.
Hello there, parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Our Haunted Travels. I'm your host, Sean Donnelly.
I'm your co-host, Marianne Donnelly.
We are here on location at a famous grave.
We are.
Should we tell them?
Let's just show them.
Just show them? All right, but before we get into that, if you're into the paranormal history, forensic, and travel type videos,
don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell so you'll hear from us next time we post a new video.
could do the thing.
No, I had stuff in my hands.
All right, let's go show them.
Okay.
Whose grave is this, Mare?
This is Francis Scott Key's.
Francis Scott Key. So yeah, Francis Scott Key. We're looking at the back of them.
We are.
But the sun's over there, so it'll be all blurry. But how did you find this? This is like why we stopped here in Frederick originally.
I thought you found it.
Did I?
And then I found the cemetery information and
You're right. You're right.
yeah, got the maps and everything. Found out where he was going to be at, which is right up front. You can't miss him.
Pretty cool. So we're at Mount Olivet
Yes.
Cemetery.
Yes. In Frederick, Maryland.
Right. So let's go find some other stuff here.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. So here is the Key Memorial Chapel. That's pretty impressive. Beautiful. So dedicated in christened in 1998. It was built in 1911. They don't build buildings like this anymore. Francis Scott Key is right over there. Oh, it's all locked up.
Mount Olivet Cemetery in Frederick, Maryland was established in 1854 as part of the rural cemetery movement, which sought to create a more park-like burial ground outside of crowded city centers. Spanning over 90 acres, it was designed to offer a peaceful final resting place with winding paths, mature trees, and artistic monuments. The cemetery quickly became the premier burial site in the area, attracting not only local residents, but also notable historical figures whose stories have become entwined with the legacy of Frederick County. One of the most prominent burials at Mount Olivet is that of Francis Scott Key. the author of the Star-Spangled Banner. Originally interred elsewhere in Frederick, Key was reburied at Mount Olivet in 1866 under a grand monument that now stands as a patriotic centerpiece of the cemetery. Also buried nearby is Barbara Fritchie, the Unionist heroine immortalized by John Greenleaf Whittier's Civil War poem. Her defiant stand against Confederate troops by waving the Union flag from her window has become a celebrated tale of loyalty and courage. Mount Olivet is not only a site of historic burials, but also a reflection of the evolving story of Frederick and the nation. Veterans from every American war, from Revolutionary War through modern conflicts, are interred here. The cemetery also has become a place of education and remembrance, hosting walking tours and interpretive events. Its monuments and gravestones tell stories of hardship, valor, tragedy, and triumph, preserving the memory of the people who helped to shape Maryland and the United States.
Okay, so this is the grave.
Barbara Fritchie and her husband. He was moved here too.
Yeah, Barbara Fritchie and her husband. I apologize if we get the sun in here, but the poem is on her memorial here, which basically Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee came into Fredericksburg, shot at her house, which was flying the American flag, and she got a hold of it and hung out the window. She was, how old was she? 96? I think that's what this said. She was in her 90s. It said, hey, you can shoot me if you want, but save Old Glory, that's your country's flag. Kind of stopped them in their tracks there a little bit. Right?
Yep.
So now she's memorialized here with an American flag over her monument. And put it on there as a poem. That talks about it. So her house actually was destroyed by a flood and they rebuilt it. It was visited by Winston Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So here is the first governor of Maryland, Thomas Johnson. That's S-O-N, not S-T-O-N.
Correct.
Let's get the Maryland flag flying over. So was that the original burial spot? All right, so you're on a quest looking for Francis Scott Key Jr. Wow, there's a lot of graves here. Isn't there? Is that it right there? Right there.
Where? Where? Yep. It is.
So who's John Ross Key? Is that Francis Scott Key's dad? No. Not by the dates. But this is Francis Scott Key Jr., right?
Yes. This is his son. One of them.
So you're saying that Francis Scott Key was originally here and they moved him up there?
Well, this was up there is his third spot.
Oh, okay.
His second spot was, I believe, here in the Key plot.
Okay.
And then he was buried in another cemetery before.
Okay.
We need to share some of the paranormal stories about this cemetery. Mount Olivet Cemetery in Frederick, Maryland is a peaceful resting ground by day, but by night it's whispered to be one of the most haunted places in the region. Locals and visitors alike have reported ghostly encounters and strange happenings across the cemetery's sprawling grounds. One of the most chilling tales involves the apparition of a lady in white, said to drift silently between the gravestones. A homeowner whose property backs up to the cemetery once spotted the woman gliding through the darkness, her pale form glowing faintly before vanishing without a trace. Some believe she is the spirit of a grieving widow eternally searching for a lost love. Another reoccurring story involves 3 spectral Confederate soldiers seen kneeling before the cemetery's Confederate monument at dawn. Witnesses have described the soldiers as silent, solemn figures in tattered uniforms, with their heads bowed in mourning. When approached or looked at directly, they vanish. This apparition has become one of the most talked about supernatural events associated with Mount Olivet, especially because it recurs in the same area and often coincides with a sudden drop in temperature or a whiff of pipe tobacco in the air, an odd occurrence considering no one nearby is smoking. The scent has been noted by ghost tour attendees and paranormal investigators alike, even when no visible source could be found. Perhaps the most unnerving account comes from a visitor who claimed to have been followed home by something after visiting Mount Olivet. In a Reddit post, the individual detailed a series of terrifying events that began the night after their cemetery visit. Whispers in their home, objects moving on their own, and a persistent feeling of being watched. They even captured a video that allegedly featured a disembodied voice. Convinced the spirit had attached itself to them, they returned to the cemetery to perform a ritual and asked the entity to leave, after which the activity reportedly stopped. Whether these stories stem from lingering energies, imagination, or something more, Mount Olivet continues to draw interest, not just from its history, but from the spirits that may still wander its past. One of the most enduring ghost stories tied to the cemetery is that of Mary Jane, a young woman whose tragic tale has fueled local legends for generations. According to lore, Mary Jane was a beloved member of the community in the 19th century, though details about her life and death remain vague and often contradictory. What is consistent, however, is the eerie claim that her spirit still lingers near her grave, unable or unwilling to move on. Some say she died of a broken heart, others whisper of betrayal or even foul play. Regardless of the cause, her restless energy is said to be felt by those who dare to visit her burial site after dusk. Visitors to the cemetery have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a woman in a long dress near Mary Jane's grave, often described as either weeping softly or staring blankly into the distance. The air around the grave is said to grow unusually cold, and electronic devices, especially cameras and phones, often malfunction when near her plot. Some paranormal investigators claim to have captured a faint EVP, saying the name Mary or simply Y. One of the most chilling accounts involves a night watchman who claimed to see her standing at the edge of the cemetery, only to vanish as he approached. Whether fact or folklore, The tale of Mary Jane's ghost adds to Mount Olivet's mystique, reminding visitors that not every soul finds peace, especially those haunted by sorrow. Among the many spectral sightings at the cemetery, one of the more unusual reports involves ghosts dressed in 1950s era clothing. Unlike the expected Civil War soldiers or Victorian mourners often associated with historic cemeteries, these apparitions appear surprisingly modern, men in neat pressed suits and women in mid-century dresses, with pin-curled hair, some even wearing cat-eye glasses. Witnesses have described seeing these figures walking slowly among the headstones as if attending a funeral, often in small groups and always eerily silent. Their presence is especially strange, given that they appear in broad daylight or during the early evening hours, catching passerby off guard. Several accounts suggest these 1950s era spirits appear around a certain section of the cemetery, possibly near a cluster of mid-20th century graves. One chilling story tells of a visitor who waved politely at what they thought was a group of people dressed for a themed photo shoot, only to watch them suddenly vanish behind a monument. Others have reported hearing soft organ music, reminiscent of a funeral service from that time period, but there's no visible source. Some paranormal enthusiasts theorize that the ghostly gathering may be a residual haunting, an imprint of a funeral ceremony that occurred decades ago and somehow repeats under the right conditions. Whatever the cause, these sharply dressed spirits add a mysterious and stylish twist to the haunted history of Mount Olivet Cemetery.
Okay, so this is the Clarke family plot. And this is the James C. Clarke is who we're here to see. He was one of the individuals who was in charge of the B&O Railroad, amongst other railroads. So this seems to be him and his wife, James and Susan. And some of their relatives. This would be Wendell and Charles. And then over here would be Carolyn. One that says mother and father. I'm assuming that that is James and Susan. And then over here we have Horace and Sarah. Okay.
Frederick County was central to the Civil War military campaigns of 1862, 1863, and 1864, while Frederick City served as a major hospital center for soldiers of both armies. Hundreds of men died here, prompting the need for a local burial. Many Southern families lack the financial or transportation means to bring loved ones back home. Unlike their Union counterparts, first placed in the cemetery, Confederate casualties were not afforded the later honor of reburial in nearby Antietam National Cemetery. Today, 275 identified soldiers lay beside 20 known unknowns in Mount Olivet's famed Confederate Row.
Okay, I think that'll wrap up this video. I think we'll do a video on Mount Olivet.
Okay.
Olivet.
All right.
We showed you some of the graves here.
Mm-hmm.
That Confederate Row was quite interesting.
Yes.
Francis Scott Key Jr. was the lady's name.
Barbara Fritchie.
All right, there's all kinds of stuff here. Now this trip we're going to have some other stuff related to Francis Scott Key.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. We're not going to put it in this video. I thought I'd make one on Francis Scott Key, but there was too much stuff here to leave out.
That's right.
Anything else you want to add?
No,
I have something else. I'm impressed on how clean they have these monuments. I mean, I've never seen a cemetery with older stones like this, and they're like pure white. They haven't cleaned. So they've been cleaning them?
They've been cleaning them. So up at the front, there was some pamphlets. Of course, I picked one up. And it actually has in here Stoner's Progress. And it actually shows that they're cleaning the different stones. So it says that they're working on it, and a big thank you to all of their hardworking stoners who braved the summer heat to come out and clean. So this was actually from last fall. So
yeah, it's pretty.
They're working on them.
They're bright white.
They are. They're looking very, very good, and you can see the difference in what they've gotten done and what they haven't gotten done.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I didn't know that Francis Scott Key was buried 3 times. I thought he was only buried twice. So today I learned that he was buried a 3rd time. So this is actually where he's at now, is his 3rd burial plot.
All right, folks. Till next time.
Thanks for watching.
And happy hunting.
Let us know if you like this video by hitting that thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and dinging that bell so you get notified the next time there's a video from Panic D Videos.
Thanks for watching.
Happy hunting.